And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Tendayi Viki. He is an author and an innovation consultant. He has a PhD in psychology and an MBA. He's an associate partner at Strategyzer, and he's consulted with some amazing companies, including American Express, Standard Bank, Unilever, Airbus. The list goes on. He has spent over 12 years in academia, during which time he taught at the University of Kent, where he's now an honorary senior lecturer. And he's also been a research fellow at Stanford and a research assistant at Harvard. So we love having type B underachievers on today. So welcome aboard.
Thank you. I feel really small after that introduction.
Exactly. Well, no, you should be proud of it. So let me ask, how did you get here, right? So there's a clear path theoretically to get a PhD and be an academic. There is no such parallel in the thought leader world. So how did this happen for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to school, in Harare. That's the city that I grew up. And I went to university there. I did my undergrad there. And so in the moment when I was growing up, because I didn't grow up with a lot, the clear path was get out of here and get to the West. That was the path there.
Go west, young man, right?
Go west, young man. Go west. There's better opportunities for you there, right? And that was the path that I was chasing. So I actually I applied for a scholarship to do a master's in forensic psychology. So it gets a bit more convoluted. So right. I get here to the UK and I'm doing this master's in forensic psychology. It's not an authentic interest of mine. I have no interest in criminal psychology whatsoever. But it was my.
But it's a way out, right?
Exactly. So I get to the UK, and I'm like, right now, how do I get to stay? Right? so you get to stay if you're doing a PhD. So I applied for a PhD. I transitioned from forensic psychology to social psychology.
Okay.
And then in the middle of my PhD, my father passes away. So now I have more responsibilities, family responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So the next way to stay is to get a job. So I applied to be lecturer. That's what they call it here. I think it's like assistant professor in the US. And I got my first job teaching forensic psychology again. So I had to go back and take the job and lecture in forensic psychology. So I'm teaching forensic psychology. I transitioned to statistics, and all the research I'm doing is around social psychology.
Sure.
And then one day I'm in Poland, right, at an academic conference, and I run into a lady who was a professor at Stanford. I think her name is Jennifer Eberhardt. And she invited me to spend a year in Silicon Valley as a visiting scholar.
So this is the beauty of it, because it starts with, okay, I got to get out of Africa. So I got to get an education. I don't hate forensic psychology, but it's not my calling. Yeah. And one thing leads to another. You bump into someone in Poland, of all places. So you wind up in London, go to an event in Poland. There's someone there from Silicon Valley. And of course, fast forward the tape, 15 years or something, and now you're a Strategyzer.
Exactly. That's the path. Because the pivot point to get me to this moment was meeting Jennifer Eberhardt and ending up at Stanford.
Right.
Where I then started attending Steve Blank's classes and learning about Eric Ries and going to Facebook's first fund and getting into innovation and taking a keen interest in that and starting to participate in that culture or movement, if you want to call it that. And that's really how I kind of end up where I am today.
So Strategyzer is an interesting organization, and it's an organization built on thought leadership. So do you want to touch on that? So it's not yours per se, right?
Yes.
It's Alex's IP, but it's interesting to be someone coming in and operating off of the frameworks of someone as renowned as Alex, and that has turned that into a wonderful business.
Yeah, no, I mean, Strategyzer is an IP-led business, right? It's sort of with Alex. Yeah, it's with Alex and Eve and their thought leadership around business model design and just the explosive success of the business model canvas and how that became a really powerful framework that loads of large companies use when they're doing their work, right? So just the kind of the sheer force of that, and then the insight, right, from Alex to say, okay, maybe this is something I can build a business around, and not just a business in day-to-day consulting, where you're just doing advisory and making loads of slides, but the goal is to build kind of a software-supported sort of service. So we're building a platform. Yeah. And then and the platform is what we'll use to design their business models and run their experiments, et cetera. and then we just provide like a supporting layer, right, of content and training around that. So that's really the business model there. It's totally
So,
driven
so
by
I want to push on a couple of things. So where I've seen this model work wonderfully, and I've seen it fail miserably. So I want to talk about the things I've seen it fail, and maybe you can counter with what you guys have done there. So one is oftentimes a thought leader creates a business, and it's really just an extension of their persona, right? They are the product, they are the thing, they are the energy, they are the charisma. And if you don't have the IP, the frameworks, the models, and the methodologies locked and loaded so that others can deliver and benefit from it, there's only so much capacity they have. So tell us a little bit about sort of how Alex has done what he's done to lock and load it so that it's a consistent deliverable and experience for clients and for consultants like you that oversee a lot of that work.
Yeah. So, and the first thing is you cannot deny Alex's charisma, right? He's
Of course,
really engaging, and he does really great work, great work in terms of like engaging and bringing people along. So it's almost like that's the you could call it the tip of the spear, or like
Sure.
what you kind of lead with. But what Alex and Eve do so well is they have this way of going to the other side of complexity. You know what they say, like, I don't care for simplicity before complexity, but simplicity after complexity is very useful.
Yeah.
Right. So Alex and Eve, when they designed their toolbox, it's simplicity after complexity, which means the model campus is very well designed, right? Publishing campus, very well designed. And now there's new tools emerging, the culture map, the team alignment map. Like these are all very well researched academically and then designed for usability types of tools. And what that allows you to do is you can go to various levels of depth with it, depending on your level of interest. Like if you're simply interested in designing business model canvases, you can do that all day. So you don't need Alex or me or anybody, right?
So you can just read the book or get a tool, or and it's priced appropriately, right? If you just want a cursory, superficial understanding, great. But it's almost Buddhist, if you will, where there's a journey and it could go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Exactly. So you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. But it's the kind of design, and because a lot of thought leaders write books, right? And they do keynotes and all this, but you have to figure it out in the density of their words. Like you have to go and parse it for yourself and then sense make it for yourself for it to become useful. And what Alex and Eve do is they lead with making it useful first, and then they actually then put the words around it. I mean, I've asked Alex this question before. I was like, what do you want to do first, design the visual or put the word? He was like, visual first, and then the words later. So the words are in aid of the visual rather than the visual being in aid of the words, which is how a lot of thought leaders work. And so, and what that does is it gives you this opportunity to get immediate value from using the tool. And then,
and I think that's a key piece because a lot of people listen to someone's work or read their book or whatever and shake their head and like, oh, wow, that's awesome. But that's a theoretical. And the applied is, how is that awesome for me right now in my situation with my clients and my business? And as soon as you give me even just a little taste, a little bit of success of how might you apply that in something you're going to do in the next, week in a real situation, that's a game changer.
Yeah, that's a complete game changer because, the stuff is immediately, you can use it straight away. You can play with it most, I don't know, you might get it 50% accurate, but 50% accurate is better than not doing it at all. And then over time, you can start to build your own capabilities to do that. But what that also does is it creates a platform that allows Alex to be able to onboard other thought leaders, such as myself, that are interested in the same content. And it allows people like me to then create plugins that augment the usability of those tools. And then that's an easier way to sort of work collaboratively, especially if you have a shared perspective and a shared language that you're kind of co-creating.
Right. And if you have that shared perspective, you're taking the burden off of Alex to be the only creator, right? Because you obviously have perspective, you have expertise, you're smart, you can add to it. Now, you're not going to come out there with stuff that's totally outside of what one would expect from a firm like Strategyzer, right? It just wouldn't make sense. You're getting into product design or something like that, right? So there's a line, and as long as you're cool with that. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. Other thought I have, or I'd love your feedback on this. One of the other things I've seen where people struggle is, so, number one is it's not codified. So you entered that. Number two is, I call it the cliff, right? So the rock star, the branded author on the book, the face of the firm, whatever, everybody falls in love. And then it's like, okay, great. We're a firm of 100 people. That person's resources are limited. You now have to work with Tendayi, whoever. And I call it the cliff because it's also it's almost an unfair burden, if not done properly, on you to say, okay, so they're expecting this. I have my own style. I have my own way of doing things. I have whatever. And it's almost like if you went to see Hamilton with Lin-Manuel, and there was someone else playing the role of Hamilton that night, you'd be like, oh, and that guy might be awesome, but it's not fair. So how do you deal with that as well, I call it the cliff problem, like where they're like, oh, starting off disappointed.
Yeah. And I'm the place where you land after you jump off that cliff. So,
we're pushed off, right?
Exactly. So that was an interesting process, right? In thinking about what my career might look like, if you want to call it in the shadow of another thought leader, right? Because I've only been with Strategyzer for 2 years now. And in making the decision to partner up or not partner up, I had to kind of think about, is Alex a shadow or is he a platform?
Interesting.
And so that was the sort of the dance that you have to make. And so one of the best ways for a thought leader to not represent a cliff is the extent to which they use themselves as a platform to raise others.
Right.
Or do they is their ego so large that they always have to be the main person, and then even if they say you can work with this other person, you've never seen that person speak or run a workshop or do anything collaborative. And Alex is extremely deliberate about making sure that any single one of us that might end up in a client-facing situation is co-delivering every aspect of masterclass.
Well, I think that's a key point. So going back in time, so Ken Blanchard has done something similar. So Ken is now, I would imagine, mid-80s or something like that. So started with situational leadership, but I know I know Ken, and I know a lot of folks at that organization. He was sort of co-collaborating with others. He was looking for others with various domain expertise and co-collaborating and literally putting their names on the books and literally putting their names on the program. And it was more of a, like you say, a platform and an umbrella where, if you're looking for situational leadership, that's Ken's, but then there's, 12 or 14 other lines that have his, essence on it, but someone else is adding to it, and they've added to the recipe in a distinct way where it's not a replication of. So that's very few people can manage it. And I think most of that struggle, quite frankly, is ego, right? And I've met Alex and we've talked about him on the show. And if you're wise enough to check the ego, or it just doesn't, not every thought leader is a narcissistic egomaniac, contrary to popular belief.
No. I don't think it's narcissistic egomaniac. I think it's the reality that you actually are the best person to deliver that message, teach that message, show that to people.
Well, in the pre-COVID age, where you were getting paid, $50,000 to show up on a stage for 45 minutes, and your day's work, which is 45-minute long, ends in a standing ovation. The postal worker doesn't get that. So,
right, exactly. So
the bricklayer doesn't get the standing ovation at the end of the jolly good, great, excellent brick.
Exactly. You're like if you're a postal worker, when you're talking to a customer, they're most likely complaining about something, right? So
right.
It's a totally different experience. And so in essence, that's the challenge, right? The question that, and I've seen loads of thought leaders, friends of mine, colleagues struggle with this. To what extent do you want to build a scalable business?
Exactly.
And to what extent is it just like a lifestyle business for you?
Yeah. So we talk about, do you want to have a practice or a business? And a practice is easy. There's only 3 ways to monetize content. You either do more of what you're doing. If not, that's a marketing issue. You charge more for it. There's things you need to do it. And ultimately, it's about the scale. And there's plenty of people that have, I would even say, better than a lifestyle business. They're 7-figure businesses, but they are the product, the offering, the service. And one of the things that we saw in COVID is the brakes hit really hard on a lot of those folks. Really, really hard. Speaking's not what it was. So what have you guys seen organizationally, good, bad, and ugly, in this almost but not quite post-COVID world we're living in?
From a business standpoint and a practice standpoint, right? We the first thing we did was we panicked because all of the things that we did were exactly what you're describing: conferences, well paid, keynotes, workshops.
Wait, so let me write this down. Step one, panic. Okay, I'm writing down the method. Okay, step one,
So
panic.
we're like, do we have enough to cover
Do we have a
payroll
business? Right.
for a year,
Yeah,
et cetera,
yeah,
et cetera. And then we moved to, but hold on, like, and this is the great thing, right? Like, when it comes to like client delivery, consulting, advisory, building workshops, delivering and implementing all the tools, Alex doesn't do that, right? We do that, right? The rest of the folks that work in the business. And that
right. He doesn't. He's right. He's not working on decks with a deliverable next.
Yeah,
to
exactly. He's not like
yeah.
coaching a team.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I mean, he does it if that business really, really wants him and is willing to pay the exorbitant prices of hanging out with Alex throughout the day, every day of the week,
Right,
whatever.
right.
So, but that's very rare. The majority of the time is just us delivering the work. And what we noticed was that clients were very happy to transition that to virtual. So we didn't lose business. And that's what made us really settle down, like in terms of we'll be okay. And so beyond that, the question then became, could we do some of the other offerings that we do virtually? So we do the masterclass, and we do some of our boot camps. And what we were able to transition successfully was the masterclass. And so we started running experiments in terms of price points. We would offer people their money back because the masterclass has been canceled, or we can you can sign up for the virtual masterclass, and people would actually sign up. The price point remained the same, which was really profitable for us after running experiments, right?
Sure.
We found that we got more conversion at the higher price point than at the lower.
But so stay with the price point thing for a minute, because I think there's people are struggling with, well, I can deliver more value face to face because that's what I've always done, and that's what people will pay more for. Right. And I think it's a courageous move to say, well, we're going to try this masterclass, and by the way, the price is the same, because what we're seeing a lot of, whether it's workshops, whether it's speakers, whether it's consultants, is, oh, I'll do it digitally for 70 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar. I'm always banging my fist on the desk going, no. If you're delivering value, is shaking your hand worth 50 grand? Hell no. Is the bad turkey sandwich you were going to serve in the whatever meeting room worth all that much money? It's the value. What is the value of the problems that you're helping your clients solve? Yeah. And the fact that you're able to do it in a way that's better, it burns less resources, burns less time, whatever. Oh, well, that's okay.
Exactly. And so what's interesting about that, right, is as Strategyzer, we're very deliberate about the customer experience. And so the question on deck was, could we replicate a similar experience virtually? Could we create activities, exercises, breakouts, all of this really high-level engaging, stuff, but while doing that virtually? So we could really say you get the same value as if you were face-to-face. And so we deliberately worked on that. I mean, we were pretty obsessive about that, running various versions of this. And in the end, we were able to do that, right? 3 half days for what was a 2-day workshop. And that sold out. And then we did another one.
Sold out. Yep.
Yeah, and then that sold out. And not only did it, and so you can imagine the margins now. We don't have venues. We don't have. So last year worked out for us really well in a sense, right? Although for me and Alex, it was a bit of a hit on our own personal wallets because we couldn't do keynotes and all that.
Sure. Right.
And that's the value of having a scalable business. We have an online digital platform already that we were working on. So we can use that when we're delivering workshops, right?
And I'm hearing people using the term, instead of keynoting, it's free-noting, which gets a lot of speakers to cringe. But the reality is, if you go back in history, 30, 40 years ago, the keynoters were the back of the room guys, right? That would come around, the John Maxwell. I mean, the people that started in the 70s and 80s, it would be a nominal fee, $20 to go see them speak in a ballroom, but their money was back of the room. I think we're sort of back to that, where the premium isn't the $30,000 speaking fee. That's the place to get people to fall in love with you, the concepts, the ideas, the processes, the methodologies, and the buy happens outside of the room, not literally in the back of the room. But it was good while it lasted, but I don't see the keynote world coming back to where it was in the short term. I mean, I don't think it goes to zero.
Maybe not in the next 2 to 3 years. But here's the question now. So if you're saying that the business model is that the buy is at the back of the room and you don't have a scalable business, what are people buying? And that's the
and that's exactly right. Then it's just entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's just entertainment. Like the keynote is entertainment. And so if you don't actually build a scalable business with onboarding other thought leaders, onboarding other practitioners,
right, you're done. Right, because I think the dirty secret, and maybe it's not secret, on keynoting is I don't care how good you are on the stage, and I've seen the best and I've seen the worst. In 45 minutes or an hour, you're not going to change my world. It might be amazing, it might be engaging, it might be entertaining, but it doesn't drive a change in behavior that is measurable compared to a business outcome. It just, and every now and then you'll hear the oddball story of the 1 in a million of, oh, I heard you talk and it changed my life. But those are such anomalies,
Yeah.
that people.
But even what does that mean, right? That I heard you talking and changed my life. Like they have to go and do some action, pick up other books, pick up other tools, bring in other people who know how to do what you were talking about before
Exactly.
their life really changes. And that's what frustrates a lot of thought leaders is when people then go and try and do the stuff that they learned from the keynote, they're looking for other people because the thought leader themselves don't have anything to give.
Right. No, and you hear that a lot where somebody says, oh, I read your book. And all that person had was a book and a speech. So from that, it got me thinking, and I created a bunch of my own tools that we use in my own organization.
Right.
And then you go, oh, it's a compliment. It's also IP theft. So am I flattered or am I appalled? Like
exactly, right. Or there's other consultants that have built.
Yeah. They're building off
based off your ideas. And now they're the ones that get hired to come and,
there's a whole
or whatever, because you're a thought leader and you don't have availability. Right. So
there's a whole cottage industry of like blue ocean strategist consultants.
Right. Exactly. So if you don't have your own business going that is kind of semi-independent from you, sort of autonomous, that can run itself, it's really hard to sort of leverage thought leadership, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time. And it's been fun getting to know you over the last year and change. You and I've had a few conversations, and thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Really enjoyable.
Great. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.